hand right now is, I guess, this is the first time in quite some time that I've returned to recording event and making recordings about events or activities or experiences that have involvement with items I can actually show physically. So something concrete that I can show you on camera. It's kind of like lost on that side, but you can see there's a couple boxes of Arm & Hammer baking soda and two dishes here of baking soda as well. And there's gonna be probably a little bit more to showcase in the back, but what goes behind all of this is, well, first of all, I should mention I'm feeling really sick. I feel fucking disgusting and miserable. Just about for the past 8 hours until 2 hours ago. So for about 6 hours from the moment I woke up, and I woke up at like 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. That's how bad it was. So that meant actually I slept 14 hours. It was crazy. I thought I was waking up at 10 in the morning, which would have been really late for someone like me anyways, because I'm a morning bird. But I ended up waking up at 4 p.m. So anyways, I was really sick, yes, and it was a combination of many things. So one of those was what I'm going to talk about in this episode, which is a good re-entry into things that this channel is really more about, because I don't like talk about too many social issues all the time, right? It should only be one major component of life, but since it involves so much drama, I try not to cover social issues. So this probably seems a little mundane for most people, but yeah, the two trays of baking soda, there's a lot to it. Basically, my unit is part of a complex or a terrace building, what have you, where some of you guys live in apartment buildings or condos. And so my floors, when I was just moving in over a year ago, more than a year now, sorry, it's gross, nasty shit. They popped, and if I can't tilt the camera down a little bit, maybe you can see it a little more on the side. No, you can't, unfortunately. So it's hardwood floors, like the 1980s parquet style. So you have, crisscross, 5 planks, small planks, like maybe 10 centimeters wide, or 10 centimeters in length, maybe 2 centimeters wide. And they just crisscross in a pattern of 5, vertically and horizontally, alternating. They popped about last summer, I think, and they would pop again in autumn because the first patch was never fixed. The second patch, so there were more that popped out from the concrete floors or cement floors because once again the humidity went up, and so that wasn't fixed for over a year. And eventually I went to Lowe's or Rona or Home Depot, and I bought some sandpaper, which is I guess I'll show that in the next episode if I can, to grind down using my hands. I have some, I do some handiwork myself. That's because I'm generally well faceted and well rounded. I like to learn everything that is necessary, right? That's what we do if we have to manage the circumstances with life and stuff. Can't really shy away from anything. So I really enjoyed learning about like some carpentry, some plumbing, soldering, hands-on skill trades, type of stuff that's just not coming to my mind right now. I'm in a buzz, and I'm also sick, but yeah. And so the contractors finally came, and this the client care center that's associated with the housing complex I live in had my ticket submitted by over a year ago, but again, it just takes forever for things to get done. And at the time, it's like things just weren't going well around the world, or nationally, or provincially, or in the city, at all levels of the world. Right, everything was just really shit for a number of mundane reasons, which I've spoken about, like war and the pandemic and millennials, like young people just starting families, social media, technology, like politics, dumbass politics, radical extremes, all that kind of stuff. Just inexperienced youth entering the workforce as well. That was one of them. And then there were like the older generations just getting fed up with the bullshit of the youth as well. So there's just like everything was pretty shit. And not even including the natural disasters and stuff like that that's happening. So it's just a really bad time. And the mental health crisis. So I listed probably just now like 11 major factors, at least at bare minimum. And that trickles down. So infrastructure and healthcare all get influenced, and stuff like that. And relationships get ruined, and society was in turmoil. And overall, I wasn't really able to get any vendors or contractors to come into my building, long story short, for almost a year and a quarter or so. That's more than like 15 months. The floors were just popped like that. And I just kind of just navigated around because it wasn't particularly important. This isn't exactly, I had bigger issues. I had bigger fish to fry. For example, there's a 2-meter wall, a 2-meter hole where my heating and cooling centralized PTAC system, or HVAC, should be, and I just had to seal that up with tape or something until they 6 months later brought in the vent cover. So it just, you could just imagine a big gaping hole in the wall 2 meters high. Like that's how like atrocious things were. And there were infestations of like shit coming from other units, and they were leaking in pests into my place. So there was just a lot of not so great stuff going down. And so the flooring was the least of the issues. But finally, and most of the things are all resolved. If I didn't take care of it, which I was very thorough with, I did take care of most of it. Eventually, some of the staff came in and did whatever they were supposed to do. Or new staff, rather, I should say. And so the floors are done. Again, I can't show you. It seems the camera tilt. If I try that, still won't be able to cover what it looks like. My hand's in the way there. I could probably move it, and then you would be able to see, but I'm not going to do that, given that my really poor, like $30 USB webcam thing is, you move it a little bit, and then the wiring is faulty, so it kind of like disconnects, and then I'll have to restart all over again. Long story short, the flooring is done now. And I had the contractors came as a team of, let's say, like Mid-Eastern ethnicity. Think of like Afghanis, for example. And honestly, I'm pretty familiar with that demographic, living where I live, because again, I live in like a melting pot of many people from all across the world. And growing up, I remember telling a story to one of these contractors who showed up. It was a team of 3, and they got the job done within like 2 hours flat. At first, of course, it was just a very cordial interaction, and they were keeping things kind of professional and not being fairly quiet. But I kind of lightened the atmosphere up, because when they came in, about like 5 minutes in, once they got started, I was like, you guys want the radio on something, So I turned on the radio and up the volume, so there's like not so much white noise, because I'm gonna be there too. Right, I gotta make sure that nothing sketchy happens with my own stuff. Not that I suspect they would do anything, but you always gotta do that, just because you're having strangers in your own place. So I had the radio on within 10 minutes, and again, privacy confidentiality, right? There are no name drops. There's nothing you can use here in this video podcast to identify anyone. But it was, young men, older men, coming in, fixing the floors, pulling apart the planks, applying adhesives underneath between the cement and the new planks, sanding things down with a handheld, and then definitely not just a P60 sheet of sandpaper that I have, which is so rudimentary. And then they applied staining resin about an hour in, and then eventually varnish. If you don't know, varnish is that kind of like that lacquer coating on top that protects the wood from damage, like scratches, but also mostly from moisture entering into the wood, and then again expanding, contracting, which causes it to warp and then pop, just like happened to mine. But of course, it only lasts for so long, right? There will be cracks, there will be faults, and eventually, even if you have varnish over the years, it will eventually pop. Anyways, if it's not taken care of, or if it's just a very old facility or residence, which mine is, it's at least one of those like 40-50-year-olds since construction. So that was very nice, and they came in and they did their job, and we had shared a couple of jokes and laughs here. There's a time where one guy's needed a washroom, passed by, and I just there's a little bit of a glance here and there. It's like, it's like you can't use the washroom sink. No, can't use the washroom sink. And then later on, when they were plugging in the buffing machine, because the sanding machine, it was like, what happened? Right, they were trying to plug it into one of those outlets, and I had taped up all my outlets because there was a pest problem I was talking about, right? And I went full blown in my unit, doing everything that I could do. That I probably went further than most people would, anyways. Because again, I take a very comprehensive approach because I'm very practical minded and oriented. So I did whatever I had to, and my unit had more of a pest control issue than others, and other people were even down with living with the pests. I'm definitely not okay with that. I don't like living with like bed bugs or cockroaches or ants or whatever. Long story short, there's steel wool, expanding foam, caulk, silicone, chicken wire, mesh, what have you, everything everywhere. And I also applied tape, right, to the plug outlets that I don't use. And so he pointed out to a security camera. He's like, you can't use that one if that one's not being, taped up. And I said, well, that's a camera. He didn't really quite register that at the beginning. And then so we had a little smirk of laughter, and it's like, and then I said, I tape everything down to the tape because of pests. And he's, oh, okay, because I told him what kind of pests I had, and he knew that's a real problem for the kind of complexes that you should expect, right, to living in. And so we had a bit of a little chummy camaraderie there. So then I kind of like a shoulder tapped and, hey, by the way, I do my own work, right? So it's like, yeah, I did tape down the outlets, but I do my own work, obviously. So in my closet, and I don't think I'll ever maybe a year down the road, or a couple months, maybe half a year in to this project, when things get rolling again, I can probably use like a camera and upload like my recordings around my place. But I don't know if I ever want to do that because I don't want to show everything within my unit, right? Long story short, there's like a display shelf. Well, there's a shelf that I repurposed as a display shelf, and I have a variety of like artifacts and souvenirs there, kind of like what I call grandma's attic or grandpa's display case of like wine, vodka, gin, and scotch, Scottish scotch, and so on and so forth. Sorry, or like military, war artifacts. Like maybe a 35mm bullet round, incendiary round. One of my good friends who used to live here until he moved out recently had an example of that. So this is like a souvenir. There's a shelf repurposed into like a display case for like trophies, awards, souvenirs, and artifacts. And I showed him right below that display case with all my tools, which actually was part of this part of what was on display, is that I had all these 12-volt drills and drill bits and lugs and nuts and handheld saws and reciprocating saws, stuff like that, and caulking tubes just all lined up there, because it was like a relic of a time when I had to put a lot of work, invest a lot of my own time, effort, energy, and resources into making this unit livable. But obviously that's also big, what I call, it's part of life, right? It's an experience I really enjoyed learning. I thought it was exciting, I thought it was interesting, I thought it was very practical. It's something that's well worth learning that I didn't think a lot of people, and really a lot of people just didn't value it very much. You gotta put in the work. If it's your own house, even if it's your own rental place, provided that you stick within the legislation or the policy of your unit, there's a lot to learn about managing a house, managing a unit. So plumbing, the windows, the balcony, the flooring, the ventilation, heating, cooling, kitchenware, right? Everything there, baseboards, studs, painting. There's a lot to learn, right? There's a lot. You can't just expect to keep paying other people to come in or making demands out of like the superintendent or whatever. You got to take responsibility. Everything that you do comes with a price. Everything that you have comes at some expense, whether it's you or somebody else's effort. Someone built a house, someone's driving the bus, someone is getting the job done so that you can have the luxuries that you have. And I know luxuries is a word, it's a bit of an it's a bit of hyperbole, but there's a lot of respect in that, especially since I'm like part Chinese, right? Think of like Hong Kong, the traditional Chinese. We call our whenever you see someone baking a pizza or like doing some kind of hard, just something that you would think in the Western world is fairly mundane. The truth is, in Hong Kong, we call them a plumber or electrician, or a HVAC contractor. We call them sifu if they have had enough experience. And that's not an understatement. I'm not just saying that. That's how we treat, or that's at least how we used to treat. I know nowadays people are very disrespectful and full of shit, and they're like really looking down on people who do handiwork. But there was a time when, not too long ago, part of like the Hong Kong culture is just like, in traditional Chinese, we give a lot of honor and reverence to those who practice their craft really well. And so I have no less respect for the industry or any of the skilled trades professions, and I call them professions, right? So they came in, and there was a team of Afghan, so we had a lot of laughter and banter there because he tried to plug it in, and it was like, that's a camera. And he's like, oh, okay, because like there were pests, and he understood instantly. I pointed to the cabinet, and he saw all my tools, and he got a little bit mischievous, and I was like, I know it's gonna do. So he's like fiddling around with the tools there, getting a feel for everything, and he pulls out a saw, points it to me, and I'm like smiling, and I laugh too. Yeah, and so afterwards, like you're like, oh, that could be dangerous, but no, like between men, if you know, like there's like there's just like some play, right? Some riff-raff, some banter, people are just like fucking around. So he puts it back, and we have he tells his boys, it's like, this guy's a handyman, all right? in their own language, in their own mother tongue. And later on, before they leave, it's just like we had a really good time there, honestly. Like I was helping them out a little bit too when they were needing some help. Most of the time, like they did all the hard work. All I did was just like lift up the bed and stuff like that, and provide some music, let them use the washroom and stuff like that. And before leaving, they'd ask me about where am I from? I asked them where they're from, right? And so we got to know each other a little bit more. And like part of it's Vietnamese, and I understand. I said, oh, Viet, small country. It's a small country. And I was gonna make a little quip about how, because recently I've divulged on my project a little bit about how, well, what society's been going, how people have been so, especially the politics have been so awful, and people have just been so awful. There's like no basic human decency at all whatsoever. And so I was going to comment on that because, like, if there was any demographic who understood, I think the Afghans really are an example of people who know, right? Don't like fuck around and find out, you know, an eye for an eye. You don't know the value of peace, you know. Well, I was gonna say, you know, that people who don't know war don't understand the value of peace. That people who haven't seen tragedy and suffering don't understand or know how to value stability and security. But at the time, it kind of slipped my mind. But that would have been something definitely, because I could have followed through with that joke, because I knew another person who was Afghan, and he's around my area, and we had a nice talk. It's an old man. Like, I've also met another, like, this more than 15 years ago, I think. I said 10, but it's more 15 years ago. I met in like Chi-town, so like Chinatown. It's like we have two. There's a west side and east side. The west side's bigger. So again, if you know, it's Spadina. This is like 2005 or 2010, and I went over to Chi-town, and there was an old Afghan man. I like to sit down, you know, because I like my elders, you know. Like the elders are really just people with a lot more experience than you. They just live longer lives, but they're still people, right? And I think a lot of people like to dehumanize, especially the youth nowadays. I say, fuck them. Listen, we're all gonna get old. I don't know what you're thinking you're invisible, thinking that you're invincible, or that you're gonna bully, harass, or ridicule old people. They have seen so much. You don't even know, okay? But of course, there are a lot of youth who hopefully do respect elders, and I think, and by the way, to be fair, of course, there are some elders who are douchebags and harass the youth as well, so it goes both ways. But, you know, I remember I was telling one of the guys here that, maybe about like 10-15 years ago, I met an older Afghan man who taught me how to count, not speak. I can't speak it, just count 1 to 10. I forgot it all. I wrote it down somewhere, but it's probably lost now at this point. Long story short, by the time we ended off and we learned a little bit about where we're from. And, you know, we fist bumped a little bit, you know, before leaving, you know. And he made a joke like, forgive us, because, like, you know, because I actually pulled up the bed and I said I can't sleep here. Yeah, and they laughed. I was gonna follow up with you know, an American joke, but I'm not gonna say too much about that because it's just banter. I always say I don't mean it, and then there's no ill will behind that. I know people who would tell jokes with ill will, but I don't mean it with ill will. But yeah, so that's it. So how does this tie in with me being sick, right? Because, you know, and all that baking soda, like what's up with all that? So if you know, right? Okay, there's like 2 plates here I'm showing, but there's a reason why the camera is actually positioned the way that it is. If you take a look, on my left is your right, I assume. So on my, yeah, it is. So it was reversed. Your left-hand side, or my right, where my thumb's pointing right now. I usually don't like to show this because that's where my buddy's computer is. He just didn't want it anymore because it had some memories he'd rather forget about. But on that desktop at the very top, if you can't see it, it's just very slim. Right above the music display, lavender blush, is like, wait, can I point to it? On top of the desktop, you can't see it, but there's 2 plates more of this, like these red plates I bought from the dollar store filled with baking soda. And that's just 2 over there, 2 on hand here that I just showed you, but I actually took the baking soda and I filled it all across the entire room. So there's probably about 14 to 18 plates of baking soda in my entire complex, where it's the kitchen, washroom, hallways, entrance, studio, opening room, like bedroom, living room, dining room. Like, they all have plates of baking soda, and that's because of volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. And this touches a little more stories. Back when I was back in university, I studied also a variety of topics and disciplines, but one of the courses I really enjoyed when in 4th year was inorganic chemistry, and in other words, physical chemistry. Well, they're not interchangeable, but I'm going to use it in that respect. Long story short, we studied a lot of polymer chemistry, a lot about contamination into hydrogeological sources of clean and fresh water. And I remember working, I should save this story for another time, with some colleagues on a project or presentation. And I covered VOCs in my presentation. So VOCs basically are some very toxic and poisonous compounds and fumes that are released, and from specifically like waxes or those air fresheners that you may purchase. You have to be careful about the ingredients involved and what the method or form of or approach to air freshening is taken. But it's just more than that. It's also a lot of cleaning products have VOCs, like Clorox and stuff. So that applies the same with paint and solvents, especially solvents like paint, as well as varnish. And so one thing that really pissed me off is that not only did it take like a year and like 3 months to get to this point, but I would have liked for the floors to have been done in like the summer or something like that, and then I wouldn't have to basically vacate the unit, because that's what I had to do. I had to leave because the varnish was off-gassing. That's what they call it, right? So all the fumes are entering the unit, and it's going to continue like that for the whole fucking month probably, but it's going to be the worst during the first 24 hours. And so for the first day, I cannot sleep here because it's very poisonous, this stuff. You should not be inhaling this for a prolonged period of time. And so what I ended up doing is I had to call up. I said, I would find a way, when one of the boys over there was a team of 3, right? One of the guys like, sorry, you can't, put the bed and everything. He's like, how are you going to sleep? I said, I'll find a way. Well, I did find a way, obviously. I have contacts and connections, and I basically called up my aunt and my uncle, and I stayed over at their place. But I didn't want to, by the way, because usually I like to see them and stuff like that, like New Year's. But I don't really want to do that uninvited or without being planned for. And so I didn't feel too good about that, actually. And that only contributed to everything, because not only is it, so you're starting to see the factors build up here, right? So first of all, this unit should have been done, the flooring should have been done like over a year ago. Secondly, there's all these like toxic gases and fumes, the VOCs being off-gassed into my room. And, that requires a lot of planning. I gotta take all the fabrics and clothing and blankets and sheets and stuff it in a bag or somewhere in the closet where the gas can't seep into, because your fabrics will absorb all these fumes. And then I had to open the windows in the middle of winter. Right now that I'm recording this, it's like January, so it's like freezing. It's like -5, -10 degrees Celsius plus wind chill. And the wind chill is good because it allows the breeze to blow to come into my unit, right? Because I want that circulation. I want the fumes out of my unit. But again, that's why it's better in the summer, because then the whole place doesn't become like fucking cold as shit, and then it feels like the Arctic. Basically I just had to let the balcony door, sliding door open and the windows open and all that cold air come in, and just remove the fumes as much as possible. And even at this point right now, like I said, it's going to be off-gassing anywhere between the next 2 weeks up to a whole month. It's just that, the worst proportion of it is over now. Now it's just like much more diminished. I still have to keep the ventilation running. Generally, whenever I'm inside the unit, I'm recording right now, so I don't have the vent running, because that would interfere with the recording. But yeah, that's another reason, right? I had to sleep somewhere else. I had to sleep over outside, and the whole place had to be done like late, and then there's like fumes everywhere, and I had to plan all the logistics and stuff away the fabrics. And I came back, and guess what? Obviously, of course, the contractors came in, and I joined the company and what they did. And I said I had a lot of respect for what they do for the skilled trades, but like I said, in reverence, in Hong Kong we call them by sifu, but like masters of their craft. But let's not get it twisted, right? We still have to do a lot of cleaning now because they walked in with like shoes from the hallway. In the hallway, like I said, this is a complex. There's a lot of like pests, so it's disgusting outside. And I don't want anyone walking outside. Whenever I walk out, I always take off my shoes. All my guests have to take off their shoes. There's no one who's walking in the hallway in that complex, walking directly into my complex, to my unit. No, that's a no. Because it's like, believe me when I say there are some people who are like, there's like dogs that piss in the hallway. You'll see like dead like fucking roaches in the hallway. You'll see like garbage in the hallway. You'll see people smoking weed down the hallway. There's like all kind of shit going down. So what I try to do is just, you know, close container. Anyone who steps out, take their shoes off, and they couldn't do that obviously because they had a job to do. So I came back in, I closed the fucking doors. It's cold as shit, and I'm already feeling kind of like not so good already because I stayed overnight somewhere else, and you know, it's just not good. And then I came and I had to clean everything. So I had to desanitize. It was like a big sanitation operation again because I just did this like 2 weeks ago, so it pissed me off. I was in a really pissy mood. So whether it's like the physical stuff or the mental stuff or like the material stuff or just the logistic, the administrative stuff, all of it was just so nasty and so much of a fucking headache. I came in yesterday, I was just cussing out, and probably my neighbors were laughing. And you know, honestly, it's funny. It really is funny because they're like, fuck, I hate fucking this, got this fucking shit all over again. But it was so annoying because I had to come in. I had to like sweep everything, mop everything. I had to like wipe up all the wood dust because they were sanding planks, right? And everything smelled like ass. It was cold. It was cold and frigid. Did I say it was cold? It's cold. I had to say it 4 times, you know? It sucked. And then, you know, I had to like disinfect, you know, the washroom because like, you know, I had to spray it down. It's like there were like 3 guys like who went in, right? So long story short, it was just like a very, and then it pushed me all the way up until like 1 a.m. You know, 1 a.m. And then I got even less sleep than I did at the sleepover. I got 3 hours of sleep when I was over at, and then I did. And then last night I went to sleep really late as well because I had to clean the whole fucking unit and disinfect and desanitize and everything. I still couldn't take a shower. So I feel disgusting and I'm fatigued. And it's cold and chilly, and you know, it's something that was stressful that I could have done a year. I wish I would have done like a year ago, but you know, that's how life works. And so, long story short, that's why there's a baking soda here because you know, and again, this isn't really an episode about baking soda. It's just something that I can show you. Like, but really, it's the whole ordeal, the whole event, what's transpired is the experience that I like to cover and talk about. So, I don't know if you guys have done any renovations. If at this point you feel like sharing that, you can definitely toss that in the comments if you want. But long story short, I have now like 18 plates of baking soda across the room because it's not necessarily true that it absorbs VOCs or volatile organic compounds, but what it does do at least is it captures the smell, and that's not that important. But apparently I tried to do some research. I spent probably at least a good 45 minutes to a full-blown hour on my phone just researching, you know, Google, like 50 sites of like 50 websites, just going from, you know, official government pages to, you know, chemistry, you know, sites over to like forums on recommendations on what to do after renovations, you know, on regarding varnish and the toxic fumes and VOCs and the staining and the resin and what can you do with it. Some people, you know, use homemade remedies and like spray it down. We have cut onions, but the most consistent, and then other ones would just, you know, give you prevention tactics, like, you know, making sure that you don't paint or varnish with compounds that have VOCs. But again, I don't get to decide that because these are contractors. The Afghani team that came in, right, they were contractors that were bidded for by the complex, so I don't get a say on that. And I don't have any regrets because I liked meeting them. It was good company. I got to meet some people who, you know, shared some very similar experiences coming from kind of a war-torn country, and we just had some camaraderie. And again, I really respect what they did, but you know, the aftermath of just the job itself, and the logistics just really sucked dick. And yeah, so now I have plates of baking soda everywhere because baking soda apparently is like the best solution I felt amongst all the other options that were presented. Some of them weren't even solutions. Like I said, they're just like, oh, just don't use like Varnish that has VOCs. But obviously that's outside of my control. I don't get to decide that. Yeah, so I'm feeling sick. Yeah, I think I caught it like yesterday. Either I was like, I don't know. Oh, I had to work too. Oh, that was so shit, dude. I woke up from sleeping at someone else's place and I came here. I had to wake up I woke up 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning after sleeping at like 1 a.m. That's why I said I got like 3 hours the day before, and I got 3 hours again just last night. But basically I woke up at my uncle's place and I had to like immediately just go to work in the morning. And then it wasn't exactly like it was a morning with a lot of work. Like at work, we had a lot of work. There's a large ass pick list. If you know what a pick list is, I don't know if you know, but anyways, I ended up working for like 6 hours straight, even though I was early. And so there's just so much that was just not going well. I mean, it's not going well. It's going well. There are good activities. There's fun. I met new people, and there was like stuff that was interesting, but it was just too much. It was overwhelming, and a lot of it was stressful, and a lot of it was just like stuff having to deal with things that I don't like to do, like cleaning. I hate cleaning. I feel like such a waste of time, but well, I'm really good at cleaning. If anything, people call me like I think I'm like a clean freak or OCD or paranoid with it. But the reality is I'm really good at something that I don't really like to spend too much time doing, which is why I just get it done all in one shot and then not have to stress about it. Unfortunately, this is one of those circumstances where it was kind of like outside of my control. And yeah, between all that shit, the stress, the strain, the fumes, just coordinating, going back and forth and finding another place to stay for a night and then just coming back and having a shitload of work to do, I got sick. And now I feel, and then the sickness itself is an issue because now it's like pain all around my sinuses and the back of my throat. I feel like fucking shit. If there's anything that I hate more than anything else, it's getting sick. But yeah, because then you can't do very much, right? Yeah. So I woke up at like 4 in the afternoon, and all right. So there you have it. So that's it. That's me like venting a little bit here, I guess. But it's a lot more than just venting. Like I said, it's a lot of fun. I met new people, got to see some like relatives, and I had a good time at work too. Technically, I'm not sure why, but when I went to work yesterday, some of my colleagues were like really, really friendly and really warm. Not like they aren't warm and friendly to me like on a regular basis, anyways. But it was just like I could feel there was some extra warmth. I don't know. It was like they're extra friendly, some of them. And then the customers, it's like I just like helping people. It's like there was like a few people showing up at my store who were just looking for items, and we got into like some small conversations here and there. Not very long, right? Because I had to work, but just some brief conversations. Yeah, helping people find like yogurt and milk and stuff like that. And it was nice. It's really nice. But it was a lot. And I'm glad that's over with. I'm glad that I don't have to deal with the aftermath. I was really just dreading whenever the contractors would come. I was hoping that the contractors wouldn't come. I could just leave the planks broken on the floor like that. But they came, and then I said, oh fuck, I know what's gonna happen now. I knew there would be, the next 48 hours would be so much hell. But anyways, it's over with now, so whatever. All right, so that's it. This is a very long episode because I guess like 40 minutes. No, it's not that long compared to most of what I've been recording recently. But hopefully, the plan is to start making like shorter and shorter episodes soon, because I don't like the idea of like taking up. I know it's like a podcast and quote unquote podcasts. Like episodes are generally like an hour long or whatever, but I have never really wanted to do stuff like that because of how time consuming it is for not just myself to speak about topics for that long, but also just for the consumer, for the audience, for you guys who are listening. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for you to like have to, unless you're like on a train, right, on your commute, and your commute is like a whole hour whole hour long. I remember like 3 years ago, one of you guys who were listening, and you know, thanks for tuning in, was you were a truck driver. He was a truck driver for, you know how like crazy those rides are. Like on their job, they have to drive for like 13 hours straight sometimes on the you know, and a lot of respect to them for doing the work they do, because they're the reason, you know, between the distribution centers, how we get all our products to our stores and the warehouses and so on and so forth. So a lot of respect to that, but it's definitely not a lavish job. And so what he does as part of his stuff is like he tends to, you know, just listen in on, he likes to do something while he's on the drive. And apparently my podcast is one of those things that he listened to, and that's kind of what I do my podcast for people who are like doing, you know, who are working and, you know, like contributing to generally society and just want to have like some other, whether it's company or learn something new or just, you know, have something to kill the time with, right? Because, you know, a lot of life is kind of, it's not always excitement. Sometimes it's painful, and sometimes it's just not painful or exciting. It's just mundane. Sometimes it's just mundane. It's kind of like trivial. You're just kind of, you know, experiencing, you're down for the journey wherever the wind takes you. And one of the people who was listening was like a truck driver, and he says, you know, this just kind of helps him to feel like he's, you know, talking with someone and stuff like that. And I have no problem with that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm gonna leave it here, I think. And but again, my point is I want to kind of shorten down these episodes because they're not supposed to be this long anyways. I mean, even if you wanted to listen to me ramble, I think it would still be better. I'm thinking in terms of like, because I'm not, if you can't tell, like I don't monetize everything, right? And especially right now anyways, but it doesn't really matter. Even if I had like 100,000 listening, it doesn't fucking matter to me in that respect. In that this podcast is really about like the day-to-day human, like person-to-person, face-to-face experience. It's just about like life, you know? And I think it'd be very antithetical if I went about and did things that just pushed away from the genuine connection that you form with people. Therefore, I'm going to stay consistent to that, like I've always been. And even if it means that when I say I shorten my episodes, you're going to end up going to someone else, like that's a good thing. I only see that as a positive, because I don't want you to be like listening to what I say for like a whole full-blown like fucking hour. There's so many things you can listen to, so many like topics and like tangential things you can, you know, put your attention and focus towards. Like whether it's learning from like Dr. Andrew Huberman, who does like fitness and stuff like that, and science and research and neuroscience, to like, I don't know, entertainment. Like just like if you wanted to scroll some entertainment stuff and you want that too, I don't know, some videos or movies, or just listen to someone else like give an interview on something, you know, some kind of like interview on, I don't know, some kind of current events or news or politics or war. Like there's just so much. There's so much like you can experience and learn from that. There's not that much point in like just sitting here listening to one single person talk for a whole hour. This is full of value, which I don't believe my podcast is that kind of podcast. My podcast is just kind of like giving a daily run-in for a connection. So I'm going to definitely try to limit things down to, you know, the 10-minute mark like I used to, until things went to shit recently, and then I couldn't follow that structure anymore. Okay, and if I do have like any sort of like varied content structure, so some might be like an hour long and others might be half an hour long and others might be like 10 minutes, I'll try to like be able to punch out a schedule where I can tell you when and like which days of the week. And maybe for example Tuesdays and Thursdays will be like 10-minute slice of life things, and then Saturdays and Sundays will have like a longer half-hour to hour long like general conversation kind of like I think that makes all more sense, you know. I don't want all my episodes to be so fucking long, and they are some of them going to be long. I should at least be able to like schedule that in advance so that people know what to expect, so that you guys know what to expect, and you can kind of like budget your time accordingly, because like I said, I don't listen to myself talk. I never review what I say on these like podcasts, I'll be honest. I don't. Like, I usually spend my time like listening to, like, God, you gotta have some kind of ego to listen to yourself all the time, man. So I don't do that unless like it's just for editing purposes. But if you can't tell, I barely edit my shit. It's all very raw and genuine, which means that I have to up my standard as a person. That's why I only do one-shot takes, because what I say in a one-shot setting is not too not too ignorant or awful or stupid or dumb or unwise. Like, it means I have to lift myself, I have to elevate myself, right? I can't be full of shit and go on the mic, which means that I as a person just have to be better. I just have to be a smarter, well-rounded, more comprehensive, more, you know, intelligent, more wise individual, right? That's the whole point. Like, that's the whole point. So yeah, that way I don't have to make cuts. Okay. But it does mean that, of course, I still want to make everything short, to be mindful of everyone's time, including your time. And so expect that sooner or later these episodes are going to get cut back down to like the 10-minute mark, maybe like halfway down the road. Who knows? Like 2 weeks time, maybe less. Who knows? So that's it. Sticking to that point, this is way over the limit, and I'll see you guys in the next one, where I cover more materials that I feel are kind of important, and it's gonna be short, I hope, the next one. See you there.